The official Vintage Guitar Magazine 2025 price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go. Use code BUYGUITAR25 to receive 15% off the 2025 price guide when purchased directly from www.vintageguitar.com. Offer expires February 25th, 2025.
Hello and welcome to Buy That Guitar, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine. I'm your host, Ram Tuli. This podcast is about the joy of guitar. That includes buying guitars, selling guitars, collecting guitars. We're talking vintage guitars, new guitars, used guitars, pre-war, flat tops, electric Spanish arch tops, custom shop guitars, limited edition guitars, basses, amps, effect pedals, lap steels, mandolins, banjo. If it has strings, we're going to talk about it. I've spent most of my life studying the vintage guitar market. It's truly something I love and I'm passionate about. I can talk guitars all day, and I'm going to. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another thrilling and exciting edition of Buy That Guitar. Today, I'm with one of my good buddies, Jeff Smith, CEO of Newman Guitars. How you doing, Jeff?
Oh, I'm doing fabulous. I absolutely am. It's so good to be here.
Now, I guess we should do a disclaimer that you and I are good friends.
Yeah, we are. We are.
We're pretty good friends, and we've known each other.
Kind of the beginning of this, so it's more of a conversation.
Yeah, so it's not really an interview. It's going to be more just two old friends just talking.
Yeah.
But we're going to be talking about something I think is very interesting. So this is going to be my first delve in Buy That Guitar. We're actually going to start talking to some of the builders. And you were the first one that I really wanted to talk to because you are in the middle, or you're right about to launch something that is super exciting. And this is absolutely wonderful time in the history of Newman Guitars, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We keep moving forward and doors keep opening up. And so we keep answering the knock.
Yep. When I was just kind of joking around, just thinking about this thing, I was going to call this having a guitar custom built is different than having a custom built guitar. But that's not true. That's only just the beginning of what's going on right now at Newman. And
yeah.
We're going to get into all that, but I guess we have to really start at the beginning.
Okay.
And we'll talk about Ted Newman Jones.
Yeah.
Briefly, who was Ted Newman Jones?
Well, Ted Newman Jones was a guy that was kind of dabbled in guitar building and stuff like that, and then took a guitar that he had refinished and flew over to France where the Stones were recording Exile on Main Street. And he kind of crashed their house, Nelcott, and had this guitar and struck up good conversations with Keith.
So he didn't know Keith before this?
He had met Keith once, about a year before then. A guy named Stanley Booth introduced him, and that was almost 69, I guess.
Okay.
But it was just kind of an acquaintance thing,
mm-hmm.
And so there wasn't really any kind of guitar language struck up or anything like that.
But it's amazing, like when you think of Ted's legacy in Austin, Texas, where he was building and rebuilding guitars, actually maintaining guitars, and you think of, I think one of the most famous guitars that he put together was Blackie for Clapton. Is that correct?
That's the folklore. There's a lot of situation behind that I don't really think he was the guy that put Blackie together after all this. At this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Ted said that he did it. I think it just kind of bled into the fact that he took 5 guitars and made them one.
because he knew everybody at that time. Yeah. But there is no dispute, though, that Ted made for Keith what is now that famous Newman design, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that the folklore, I don't know if it's even true, is that they basically came up with that body shape. How did they come up with that body shape? You told me this, but I don't know if anybody knows this.
Yeah, well, it was on their 72 Stones tour. They took 2 circles like of an acoustic guitar, and then they canted them forward so they almost became like ovals. And that was the first idea that Keith and Ted had. And that was a non-cutaway Newman that was pretty primitive, and it's been on display out there in Keith's collection before. And it was pretty primitive. Ted wasn't happy with it, but Keith took it on tour in 1973 through the Netherlands, I think. And that was the beginning of things. And then they decided on a cutaway, and the cutaway was sharp and kind of not right, and the guitar was too canted. And so eventually, around 77 to 78, it came to be as the Newman shape that we know it now. And that's when they set up shop in Austin. I think Keith gave Ted $20,000 to set up shop in Austin, and they put that shape together, and Ted started building guitars.
Now, didn't they use like a mayonnaise jar lid to actually for the cutaways?
Yeah, well, they couldn't get the cutaway right, and then all of a sudden Ted looks down in his shop and sees a mayonnaise jar lid on the ground and says, "Hey, look." It's perfect. So I've never really taken a mayonnaise jar lid to it and sized it up, but Ted told me it was like his big secret for a lot of years.
That's the folklore. Everybody knows anything about Keith Richards is they know he really perfected what is known as the 5-string open G tuning. And one of the things that he had Ted make for him was that 5-string guitar that only had 5 strings. He was basically, if you look at some of his earlier Telecasters, he would just remove the high E or the low E string,
Right.
So this actually, the first time Ted made this 5-string for Keith, it was built, the actual built as a 5-string guitar.
Yeah, everything about it was. That's why it was so primitive. And then the Rolling Stones exhibitionism tour that went through had that guitar in its display. And a lot of people sent me pictures of it and stuff, and I was just blown away at how primitive the bridge was and everything else like that. But it was kind of I joked about it to Ted as a Frankenstein. It's alive,
Yeah.
you know.
At that same time, Ted was making guitars for a lot of other people too.
Right.
But he didn't make 5 strings, right? He was only making that Keith Richards.
He made some 5 strings out there because people wanted the association of it, but I think Newman Guitars didn't build its reputation on 5 strings. They built their reputation on 6 strings, and there was a 5-string association.
Let's go back to now when you actually enter the picture and you meet Ted. This is like a critical time now, right?
Right. I met Ted in 2015 and drove down to Dyersburg, Tennessee, and met with him about restoring the company. And I was picking up a prototype from him. And when I got down there, I kind of noticed that Ted took a long time to walk from a room to a room. He was pretty winded and stuff like that. But I didn't say much about it because it was my first time meeting him. So I drove home back to Indiana with this prototype guitar, and I'm checking it out and everything else like this. And I'm talking to Ted on the phone, and I know he seems kind of winded still. And it seems like maybe 3 or 4 months into our discussions about rebuilding the company, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. So it changed everything it kind of changed it into a humanitarian role where I can't just go, "Well, Ted, I know things aren't going well, so I'll talk to you later," and just walk away because I know his health wasn't good. Instantly, I had to jump in different levels. I had to get him to his medical appointments, and I had to keep his hopes up about rebuilding the company. But once I knew he wasn't going to be the builder anymore, I knew that everything had to change. And so that was a real pivotal moment for me.
Right. So now it's a race against the clock, and you're trying to take what Ted started and turn it into a viable.
Yeah.
Did he reach out to you, or did you reach out to him?
You mean in the initial thing?
Yeah.
I reached out to him, and I got to know his mom really well too. And so his mom had a lot of trust in me. And so when things happened with Ted, his mom was really holding on. She saw a lot of good work that I did, with Ted, and getting him to appointments, like I say, and trying to get a magazine article published on him and to get his name back out there, to give him value in his lifetime. That was the process. And then instantly it went from Ted and I building the guitars together to me going and finding help in a couple of different ways. And so I found a builder that would be able to do the files in a CAD form, which is computer automated design. And I knew that I had to get Ted's neck carved and everything Ted liked about the guitar. I had to get it duplicated digitally, or else it was a matter of opinion.
Right.
So I had to get a guitar made right away that could be
right away that he made, right? That he actually made.
Yeah, I mean, I handed it to him and said, "What do you think, Ted?" And he was like, "Well, and gave me his once over on it and stuff like that." And so we refined our building, and then you just kind of hit save.
Right.
And then that moment in time is saved for that's the file that Ted said, that's my best neck carve, that's the body, that's the everything.
This is how I get involved. This is how I find out about you, is that my drummer, Rick Obenshane, was in Indiana, and he was with his buddy Brick Briscoe. And Brick said, "Hey, to my good buddy Rick Obenshane, who's the drummer for the Psychedelic Mooch, that hey, I'm having a guitar made by Jacob Harper."
Right.
So they're out in the middle of nowhere in Indiana.
It is kind of. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And Rick sends me a picture of 5 guitars that Ted Newman Jones is making. And there's 5 bodies, right, that are carved.
Right.
And they were all put together. And so he sends me a picture of this thing like, hey, look at this. And I've always loved the Newman design. I've always known about Newman, and I was always a huge proponent of 5-string. I always play an open G, and I, like most people, I took that low E string off. At least one Telecaster was always tuned in open G with a missing E string. And when I saw that, I'm like, there was one that was painted TV yellow, and I don't know how, I must have got your phone number from him or from Jacob Harper or somebody, and I called you. I said, hey, I want that TV yellow 5-string.
Yeah. Yeah, and we shipped it. And you told me it was like the first new guitar you bought in years.
Yes, that was the first guitar that was actually made. That was new. Yeah, you're right. Because all I'd always been doing is just buying used vintage stuff. And this was the first guitar. And I couldn't believe how beautiful this guitar was. I couldn't believe what it felt like to play a new guitar. Like it's like that new car smell, that new, just the feel, that neck was just incredible. I guess people describe Newman necks as being buttery. Right, this thing was buttery, and just the tone that I got out of it, it was just something. And I always tell people,
yeah, that's awesome.
From that day on forward, I've always, people always see me walking around with a Newman shirt on. I'm I'm like your 5th most important brand ambassador behind all the others.
Having an ambigram logo, same backwards and forwards, upside down, and such helps the ranking of your stuff.
It does, and I think I told you the story when I was actually wearing your T-shirt when I went to visit George Gruen in Nashville, and I just happened to be wearing a Newman shirt, and he, of course, the first thing he noted, he points out that's whatever what is that called, ambigram. Ambigram, where it reads both upside down and backwards, or upside down and front way up.
Yeah.
And then I told him that I had a 5-string guitar made for me by Ted in 2016, like right at the end. And then he points out, so what he does, he gives me a banjo, says, well, if you know how to play 5-string, then here you go. That's banjo tuning. And so there was like another guy there that was, he was buying for somebody overseas, and he took a banjo and he was playing all the Stones. He was like, he couldn't believe it. He was playing all the Rolling Stones songs that he knew on that banjo. And I was like, yep, that's 5-string tuning. In a nutshell.
Yeah.
So I was basically right when you were first starting out, the company, is I got one of the 5. I got number 5, I believe, out of the original cuts. Right?
Yeah, you did. And that was a good phase for us because we had to get a 5-string and a 6-string made. Kind of getting a 6-string made was obviously the first goal because it was the most widely probably adaptable guitars for the market, but then the 5-string had to come along with it. So Ted and I had a lot of work to do right towards the end, and things got difficult, and we got our act together as quickly as we could. And it's a really wild situation when you have to ask somebody to share every single thing they know when their whole life has been kind of secrets like the mayonnaise jar.
Right. And time is of the essence. It has to be save.
Yeah,
Every day you got to save more, and more until you finalize.
yeah,
When I think of Newman, like we're gonna get into this transition that we're going into right now.
sure.
But I think of Newman as just one of the best custom builders there were. Like I know that anybody who goes to Rumble Seat Music in Nashville,
Hmm.
one of the first thing you'll see are these beautiful Newmans that are hanging on the wall. Is Elliot at Rumble Seat? Is he your main retailer, or are they all over now? Well, there will be. They will be. I'm sorry, but
No, there. It's not is one location, but what Elliot was that was really critical is he was a very opening heart to a boutique builder that wasn't capable of making 60 to 100.
right.
One-offs and Danny O'Brien engraved guitars, and then I hooked him up with Danny O'Brien, and he kind of ordered an engraved guitar, and it was a great period there for us to build off of because he represented vintage guitars and we weren't a vintage guitar. So obviously that whole makeup there, and like in your category too, coming to us as a, vintage guitar enthusiast, you're coming to us and we're a new guitar. So, I mean, those types of things obviously continued for us.
And I think like your first 5 years were pretty exciting because no two guitars you made, everything was a one of.
Oh, yeah.
But
Hmm.
if you go to Newman.com, there's a link, and it's just the pictures, right, of all the
Hmm.
guitars you guys have made, and
Hmm.
every single one will blow your mind. Every single one is beautiful. Every single one is one of a kind. These are the originals, like the first 5 years of your making these. But one of the things I think the most beautiful ones are the ones that Danny O'Brien made. Can you get?
Yeah, he did a great job. And the situation is had a friend named Ian Dickey, and he was a guitar enthusiast too, and he had some Zamitis guitars that were incredible. And he owns Keith Richards's Mesa Boogie,
Mhm.
that's in a lot of the photographs and was played out and stuff like that. And he introduced me to Danny O'Brien, and that opened doors for, maybe a year and a half or 2 years. And that brought Newman Guitars to another new audience of people, collectors
Right.
that really were, again, vintage enthusiasts that for some reason are carrying over to our stuff, even though our stuff was made. And like you say, if you go to newmanguitars.com, and that's our website, if you go there, you'll see just tons of gallery pictures and stuff like that, and a lot of green space as far as a website's concerned. And the value of doing that is so that people could dream and they could look at the pictures of the guitars and they could say, wow, I do it all the time.
Hmm.
My own brand. Our 10th anniversary guitars, Koa.
Right.
I've always wanted to see a Newman in Koa, so I thought that'd be great. And then I thought, let's get Jacob Harper to make a carved top Koa. And so it just continues to build off of that. And then somebody will see that picture and they'll like it and they'll want to do something. Or so in the introductions of the discussions today, you said, having a custom guitar built is different than having a custom built guitar. And so for that factor, we got so much opportunity of seeing people dream on our shape.
Right.
So our whole website's only one shape. And if you buy a Newman guitar, it's one shape.
I think I even talked to you about a couple years ago. Like, you should do a coffee table book. That all it is the photographs of all the guitars you made in the first, like since the beginning. And because they're just beautiful guitars. Every single one is unique, different wood, different build quality. Just the high end everything. And
Hmm.
and I remember just being blown away when I first started seeing the Danny O'Brien carved, the carved tops. And can you get one now, or are they all gone?
Danny O'Brien is still engraving and he still has a relationship with us that is totally fine. A lot of it is if an individual wants a specific type of artwork, it has to be sketched out and approved. You can't just say, I want skulls and crossbones, and then instantly it shows up. And it can be that way. But generally, there's a little bit of back and forth about it. And another gentleman named David Humphreys does the metal work.
Mm-hmm.
So Danny doesn't want to do a bunch of work that if the metal didn't come from from David. So it's a lineage of history that has to be recreated to get everything right.
And as far as I know, you can't buy the Zemadius. They're not making those anymore, are they?
I don't know if they're making the guitars anymore, but Danny is engraved pieces and things like that for people who have those guitars, and that's been a good thing for him. All the truss rod covers and things like this, all that is very valued stuff to have him engrave it.
So then let's talk about now. What's going on right now? So you've been spending since about 2016 building, these custom built guitars.
Right.
But now something has changed, and it's now going to be easier for people to get these Newmans, correct?
Yeah, what happened is, I got introduced to Billy Gibbons 2018. So we started talking a lot, and he knew the Newman brand from the days of Texas and Austin, late 70s, early 80s, all the way into the 90s. And so when we resurfaced, he was really a very generous person with his advice and his support. So, you look at that and you can talk only so long with Billy about guitars because he knows everything, and it's not necessarily like you're going to come up with this whiz bang that he hadn't heard of before.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but he has an incredible business mind. He has an innovative way of thinking, and that tended to be the crux of our relationship. And so, one of the things that he pushed towards is finding a builder that could make multiple units that had great logistics for global selling and global shipping, and maintain the integrity and quality that we established with Ted through the CAD file. And so looking at that, we got a hold of Cream Tea, who was making pickups for Billy for years. And we had used their stuff in some of the honeycomb chambered guitars that we did that were reviewed by Vintage Guitar Magazine. And so I contacted them, and they build guitars themselves out of, the UK. And so the question comes around, if we transfer files and we have a good level of trust relationship, can we transfer intellectual property across the pond and build a guitar over there and send it over here and see what it looks like? Well, the answer was, yeah, you can. So it became the most logical way for us to keep it in the family, so to speak, in many ways. And so I work with a guy named Tim, and Tim Lobley is a wonderful guy, and he's like family to me in so many ways. And so because of that, we have this trusted relationship that we're going to be honest with each other, and we're going to build as many guitars as we can for the people who like us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been kind of our plan. And this 2024 was just it's actually the first year of our partnership together. And we've crossed so many things that we're ending the year very successfully and moving into 2025.
So these, will you continue to make the custom made guitars as well?
Yeah, we make guitars, and anybody could custom order anything they want from us, and we would build it. So,
And how do they go about doing that? Do they go to Elliot
we're gonna
at Rumbleseed, or they contact Newman specifically, or they just email you and say, "Here's what I want," and then it's an iterative process?
yeah, basically, it's one of those deals where somebody would email us or call me and say, hey, here's what I'm interested in. What this kind of finish, maybe I'd talk about fretboard materials or tops or, binding and a lot of other types of things like that. And, we've done names in fretboards in pearl. That's been really cool. We do a rare 3x3 headstock that's really cool. So, we do different types of things, and that's where.
And you use any kind of tone wood that's asked for? You can source any kind of tone?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Everything's out there for everyone. I like ebony a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's ebony fretboards, and so I'm like this big slab of ebony. It's a really nice thing for me. And so somebody else will say, no, I want this. I want something else. But everything is 24 3/4 scale, and everything is 24 frets. And everything is the Newman body shape and those things, and the headstock, and then the logo, and nothing is negotiable.
Right. One thing I'll point out too, when they look on your gallery, they'll see that it is the Newman body shape, but you also have what they call 3D models, which have
yes
carves. You can get these big bump outs, You can get, like there's one that you painted like a car. It was like a 52 or a 55 Ford Fairlane or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can get anything. It's in that shape, but you can get anything. Yep.
Oh yeah. That's why a browse through our gallery, and you'll see that nothing. It doesn't.
Yep.
You don't get tired of it.
The official Vintage Guitar Magazine 2025 price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go. Use code BUYGUITAR25 to receive 15% off the 2025 price guide when purchased directly from www.vintageguitar.com. Offer expires February 25th, 2025.
My favorite guitar you guys ever made are the black with the bump out that have the Danny O'Brien engravings on both sides.
Oh yeah.
How many did you make of that particular type?
I think we only made 4.
And they're out there, and it's
5, maybe 5.
Right.
I had a prototype that I had made and shipped it out to Oregon for a NAMM show. This would have been the 2020 NAMM show, and it got stolen on the way there.
Oh my!
And I kept thinking it's gonna
show up.
I'm never gonna see it again. Somebody's gonna throw it off a bridge or something. 3 or 4 months later, I got it back.
Cool.
And so
for the custom builds, like when people contact you to have something custom built, what is the most preferred body wood?
I'd probably almost say swamp ash. There's we have a lot of good swamp ash that comes through that builds a beautiful guitar, and it can be, a wood finish. A lot of it's vintage tint. You can really do some good stuff with swamp ash.
And where do you get your swamp ash from? Where do you get it from the south or do you get it from the north?
Jacob sources it.
Because I think that's to me that's one of my favorite tone woods for a solid body electric guitar is that swamp ash. I love seeing it to a translucent finish.
Mm-hmm.
What about mahogany? Is that another one that people really, really want?
Oh yeah, it's mahogany is probably 70% of what we've manufactured in the United States. The cream tea in UK, we do an obici, which is almost like a Polonia.
Mm-hmm.
And when you chamber it, like a honeycomb chamber, the guitars we've done for Billy have been about 5.25 pounds.
Oh, that must be incredible.
And it's like a toy.
Right.
It feels like it's not a believable weight. It's almost like swinging a golf club that has no weight whatsoever. You almost have to have a little resistance to kind of make it believable.
Are all cream tea customs shop guitars going to be made out of that wood then?
No, we'll have some variable woods in there and stuff like that. We've been, I think that we got some guitars that are going to NAMM 2025, and they are mahogany.
Mahogany?
And they're going to be a 2 pickup guitar. And so everything we've done with them pretty much has been a single pickup besides the 5-string that we've done with. So we've really branched out our line and our capabilities with them. We've done the honeycomb chambered junior that we designed with Billy for his stuff, and then we brought that into now a 2 pickup model where it has pickup swapping.
Mm-hmm. The exchange, you call it an exchange,
which is you can pull the pickup out and put a new pickup in. You don't have to turn the amp down, and you don't have to cut the signal to the guitar. So you can try it with a P90 and a hum housing, or a single pickup and a hum housing, or a humbucker.
So the change, you physically just pop it out and just pop it right in?
Yeah, actually, yeah. And so it's the first pickup swapping patented system, that is as eloquent and proper as it could be. And so, like, let's take, for example, if you're a pickup manufacturer and somebody comes to your booth, you're going to hand them like 6 guitars for them to hear the different pickups.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are 6 different guitars also. And so imagine playing the same guitar, plugging in a P90 and a hum housing, listening to it for a few seconds, playing a riff, pulling it out, putting in a overwound humbucker and playing it for a while and pulling it out and putting in a different, altogether different pickup. or a different manufacturer of pickup, putting in a Seymour Duncan, pulling it out, putting in a Arcane, pulling it out, putting in a Cream Tea, pulling it out, and listening to different manufacturers, not just different pickup voicing. And this is available in real time.
Right. So
So
somebody who buys the new cream tea, it comes with a pickup, and then they can add in like their little shopping cart. They could add in, I want a humbucker, I want a P90 sign like that. They can just tailor it the way they want it, and then they'll buy as many extra pickups as they want.
yeah, so you could get like a Newman guitar with a a single humbucking pickup, and then you can buy three or four different pickups that will go with that guitar. And so, in working with Billy, I went down to his house. And we sat down and really hammered out some detail about pickups and what would be the best for a traveling guitar player. For example, if a guy was going to Europe and he couldn't take a whole rack of guitars, but he wants a Tele, he wants
Hmm.
a Les Paul, he wants a kind of a heavy Les Paul pickup that's going to take on a lot of gain, but the next song has to be mellow. And you actually can do that by just pulling the pickup out and choosing a different pickup selection. You can do all those different types of things, and that's a real branch of the tree that's legitimate, and it has a utility to it. It's not just a novelty.
Right. It's kind of like, I always think of the old Dan Armstrongs,
Hmm.
the Lucite, the ones that weighed, they were like, we call them Altamont anvils because they were like 15 pounds.
Yeah.
And you're stuck with whatever pickup that the person who owned it has because he doesn't have all the replacement pickups that you slide in. But I remember like I was always looking for one that had the humbucker.
Hmm.
They always came with the single coils because people always lost the humbuckers. But I've always loved that idea. I've always loved that being able to do that, swap out pickups and just keep going. But I was never excited about an 18-pound guitar.
Yeah, so imagine Billy's guitar at 5.25 pounds, and it has this pickup swapping system called Guitar X
Hmm.
built into his guitar. So he can put in he could put in Seymour Duncan stuff, he can put in the cream tea stuff, he can put in whatever he wants to try different things and everything else like that. He's in a 5.5 pound guitar.
Hmm.
And so let's take, for example, if you're playing in the studio and the engineer says, "Have you got anything different?" The guy brings a guitar,
I need
his
you to
love
cut
of
through the
his
mix.
life
You got
guitar.
to have something that has a humbucker on it.
And the engineer's just not catching it right in tone. And so you could spend time tweaking amps and doing all this other stuff, or you could just pop that pickup out, try a different, pickup, put it in, see if that works, because you're never changing the guitar that way.
Right. That's a fascinating.
If you love the way the guitar plays and the balance of the guitar and everything else like this, then that's your guitar. Now, I find myself in the same vintage category. Being my age, I've collected vintage guitars for years on end, and I have a lot of fun on a rainy day grabbing a different pickup and putting it in and listening to it through my Champ, and then my Tweed Champ, and then doing the same thing with a different pickup and kind of settling in on the pickup sets the mood more than the guitar sets the mood,
Right.
if that makes sense, because normally it's always been the guitar sets the mood.
So let's give the people listening, let's give an idea. Like if they want to have something you make is a custom order, they're going to have to pay about how much for a guitar that has the high end stuff on
I,
it. Like,
Usually we're probably $4,200 US to build something over the top.
mhm.
Through our website, which is newmanguitars.com, we have an e-commerce site that we've launched, and that has the guitars that we have available through Cream Tea built in the UK, and they're absolutely fantastic. And the ones that Billy will have on tour in 2025 are made in that shop. They're outstanding.
And how much are those going to cost? The ones that are
and
overseas?
and they're running a little bit less,
Okay.
but custom made in the United States, one off, versus something that's available in more of a retail type of setting.
Mhm. And then the pickups themselves, where can somebody you want to buy an extra set of pickups? They're how much are they each?
I don't know what Cream Tea's specific prices are, but if you go to our site and you click on
Mhm.
the site that goes to our e-commerce, you'll see it on our homepage.
Okay.
And if you go there, you'll see all the options that are available and everything else else like this. And then anything that's a Guitar X pickup, you can buy that from Cream Tea, or you could buy it through buying your purchase of the Newman guitar. Now, on top of that, you can buy the Guitar X housing that you can make adaptable to any manufacturer's humbucking size pickup. It doesn't just because it's a patent that's secured by our group, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not compatible to other guitar pickup builders, options.
Right.
So it's a great way to demonstrate different pickups from a guitar builder's perspective or a pickup builder perspective.
I've seen many pictures now of Billy Gibbons playing the Newman that he's been touring with. It's a blue, like a baby blue with a nice, but he's going to change that around. I've also seen pictures of him playing when it was all black.
Yeah, these black ones are starting to come out, and the black ones were part of an amazing story, because I went down to his house, showed him the guitar pickup swapping system. We had brainstorming about that. I'm driving back to Indiana, and he says, hey, we're going to be in Indiana in about 40 days on the ZZ tour. Is there any guitars that you think you can put together for that, and we'll meet up? Well, our guitars are in that time frame. Building a guitar in the UK in less than 40 days and having it on stage in Indiana, you can only imagine. So we took the challenge. We had 40 days. There's a little vlog out there about our building these guitars in less than 40 days. Tim Lobley, who I mentioned earlier, and his wife flew these two guitars and a bass from England, and then we got them on that stage that night, and and he played them and everything else like this, and then they go off to Bolin, and they're getting a little bit of some graphic applied to them through John Bolin's.
So let's go back and talk about 5-string. Are there,
Sure.
like you were, I think once I a couple of years ago, I asked you, hey, are a lot of people buying 5-strings? And you said, no. It's like there's only a few of you out there.
Yeah, I mean,
but is that still true? Is that still true?
The thing is, it's for the people who want that thing. And I like the idea myself, if I'm going to own a 5-string, that I'm not playing a 6-string guitar that's just kind of got this extra space. And I really wanted a 5-string, and I think that you were the same way.
Right.
And I think those vintage enthusiasts, in other words, if you're going to buy a 5-string made Newman, you probably already got a bunch of guitars.
Right.
So you probably know if you want a swamp ash body. You probably know if you want a maple fretboard.
Yeah.
You probably know if you want it, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one you guys made for me that had all the things that, like, I think I called you and I said, I want a maple cap.
Mm-hmm.
I want, and you gave me the really, really nice maple neck with a maple cap on it.
Right.
Beautiful color.
Mm-hmm.
TV, for some reason, I love TV yellow, but you never see TV yellow on swamp ash. And that's on swamp ash.
Yeah.
You always see it on mahogany. So that's just a beautiful guitar.
Yeah.
I've always loved it. And I remember the thing was, I went back and forth with you on the pickup, and then you had to, because I wanted this and I wanted that. And you're like, well, it's a 5-string guitar. You can't have a 6 bobbin. You can't have a 6 pole. And so you guys put the rails in for me, the EMG rail. Is that what it was? The EMG rails?
Yeah, they were just EMGs. They weren't rails. They were just EMG passive pickups. But
right.
Now with Cream Tea, they are pickup builders. So we actually, with their guitars that are available, we actually had a 5-string pickup specifically made and voiced. And I said about the 5-string is it's a mid-range product. It's a mid-range guitar. There's no low end to it. It's not like a Stevie Ray Vaughan low, cool tone. It's kind of a brown sugar. It's right in that, mid-range crunch.
Yeah.
So when they made them with 5 pole pieces.
That's a good way to describe that 5-string sound, as a crunch.
It is.
And it's important to pair it with a nice tweed amp, and you get an incredible.
Yeah.
Because I remember the first time, I always used to play an open G, and that top string is just dead. It's just a drone of something else. But when you take that off and you got the octaves on the high end and low end, like basically you could cup it, and that it changes everything. It's just there's a tonal mathematically. I don't know what that is. Somebody who is a music theory person would probably explain this to us. Why that open G tuning has such a great feel to it, has such a great resonance to it. That missing low string makes it so that it's just a credible sound. And yes, you're going to be able to play all the Keith Richards licks because they're very, very similar.
Right.
But it's just, to me, it was always there. You could write a million songs on that guitar, and I have 16 guitars on my wall,
Yeah.
and one of them will always be that Newman 5-string because it's something I want to I come in and I say, I feel like playing that today. I feel like playing that an awful lot. I always have a 12 string on the wall, always have a 5-string on the wall. And I even have a lot of times I have a 6-string bass on the wall. And it's just because these are just different. You can only play the 6-string and do Telecaster versus Stratocaster versus SG Special.
Mm-hmm.
You get there. You get there and everything's got a special kick in it. But that 5-string just always opens up. It just opens up in a different way. And you're just like, man, this is something. And I'm telling anybody who's listening to this, if you're playing open G, you got to try it. First thing to do is take your Telecaster, take that low E string off and try it. All of a sudden it'll be like, wow. It's like, and then have a guitar built that's just 5 strings,
Yes.
that nice thin neck, and you just can go all up and down, do a million things. You can capo it. You can do all these cool things. And it's just I don't know. It's like a songwriting machine, isn't it? Kind of. I mean, think about that.
Oh yeah, I think that you hit it right there because the thing is instantly you're not playing these chord shapes like 1, 4, 5 chords and stuff. All of a sudden you're just pushing a finger forward a fret or 2 frets, and you're getting this totally different sound.
Yep.
It capos beautifully too. So I mean, you bring it all the way halfway up.
And just the amount of energy that you can put into these things, like I think of like the intro to "Can't You Hear Me Knocking." Just like, how do you do that? How you listen to that as a kid, you're going,
right.
What is he doing? What is that? How did he get that? And it's just, it's
right.
brown sugar sound. It's that, it's this. And it's all coming from magical 5-string tuning.
Yeah. So to have Cream Tea designing a specific humbucking pickup, 5 pull pieces sticking out of a humbucking size thing was just an exciting thing for me.
Does Billy Gibbons have a 5-string? Did you give him one?
Yeah, of the first five strings we made in the UK, Billy got one in butterscotch, and Johnny Marr got one in butterscotch.
Mm-hmm. Did you tell him that was the Tuli model? Did you tell him that was the Tuli model?
I should have. I'll have to now.
Yeah, say that's known as the Tuli model that butterscotch made.
Yeah, Tuli, because we called yours Tuli TV Yellow.
Yes, and I have and I have the paperwork, and I have the.
Mm-hmm. I certificated that.
Yes,
that
one
way.
because it was signed by Ted. That was like the very end.
Yeah,
he signed that certificate.
Yeah,
I think you told me that like I was number 5, right? I was number 5 out of that.
That's why you got a signed certificate, because there weren't very many of them at all. And if somebody shows me that certificate, it just kind of it puts you reeling, about how we've really come so far today versus when that certificate was signed by Ted with the hopes of building a guitar.
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. And this one of the things, like when I talk to guitar builders, that's what I'm going to try to do with this podcast, especially moving forward, is just talk to the builders, because to me, everybody out there dreams about building a guitar. Everybody wants to, like, I know that when I was trying to think of what am I going to do, once my business got sold on me, what am I going to do? I thought about building amps. I thought about how cool it'd be to be building amps. Then I realized, well, all I'm going to be doing is building 5E3s.
Yeah. Bunch of deluxes.
And I'm going to spend, I'm going to be spending, like $5,000 to sell to make an amp that I can only sell for $2,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So everybody dreams. And I've always, like I always think of, like, because I have my engineering experience, I want to build a guitar. I want to put together a guitar. But you really did. You actually took a brand that was historic, that was just kind of a historic brand. And now it's something new. It's like a brand new, a boutique guitar, and something that's completely new. They're actually gonna be able to make many, many, many of them,
right?
Through your hard work of building the specs, doing the CAD,
mm-hmm.
All that stuff that came from, that was your dream, is to be where we are right now, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm so much further than I ever thought I would be, which means every day in front of you is was an incredible, a blessing. But the one of the tough things in the very beginning of the company was there was no digital reference of us whatsoever. And it was
Right.
2015, so the digital reference was moving along pretty quickly, and there wasn't any TED articles out there. There wasn't any file of photographs of Newman guitars or anything. It almost completely had to be rebuilt. The history of the company had to be rebuilt digitally so that I could point to it and say, those are the guys. That's
Hmm.
Tom Petty playing one of our guitars. That's Keith Richards. That's, and it had to build on that.
And that effort is where has got you where you are right now, where you could actually have this made in England, to exacting standards, to your exacting standards.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Amazing. So that hard work, I mean, that was a lot of hard work, and you did it. You actually
Yeah,
succeeded.
yeah, single-handedly, and it's really pretty amazing too because I inherited a legacy, and so you can give up on your own dreams, but you can't really give up on somebody else's if you inherit them.
Right.
Their legacy passes in your time frame because basically you get too busy or things happen, and so you have to. And that's another thing about cream tea is you have to be able to build a lasting brand. If I build one or two or 10 or 12, 15 guitars in the United States in custom one-off fashion, that's not a sustaining model for the brand. So somehow there had to be a scale up ahead of me somewhere. And that's the beautiful thing about Newman and it being further than I ever expected is I think there's answers out there. I don't necessarily have them yet, but I think they're out there and I keep seeing doors opening and Billy's advice is priceless and things like that.
Like 10 years from now, what do you see? You're ever going to make anything besides the Newman body, or is it possible I know you're making bases, but what do you see like in 10 years from now?
Yeah, yeah, we're making bases. I kind of hope not. I hope I really almost don't know that I can see 10 years from now because I've only been in the rebuilding phase of the company for the last 10 years.
Right. And every year was like more and more and more and
I
more.
have to keep it simple and understandable, or else it's just too much. And so the concept is build more guitars for the people who like what we do. And I'm trying to keep that motto simple. I think that to make them more available, to not let the quality of the guitar stray in any way, shape, or form, and to not lose control of anything. And I think it's really been good that the exercise of putting things together makes the future very bright because I don't have to keep pounding the history of it. It's there now, and I can move on to the more important things. But while Ted was sick, I had to go back and cultivate his history and put it on the web, and I had to do all these other types of things and establish a website and had legal costs and all kinds of things, crazy things going on that had nothing to do with building guitars.
Right.
But they all had to do with the hope of building guitars. And so eventually we've turned that corner on our history. We've laid our digital footprint. And now it's on to building guitars for the people who like us.
And I like I said,
Yeah.
I'm a brand ambassador. I'm like way down on the list, way below Billy Gibbons and and Keith Richards. But I'm always out there talking. I'm always talking Newman.
Yeah.
Anybody who, everybody knows that whenever I'm playing that Newman, I always put a picture up on social media. People always say, "Is that a Newman?" And I'm like, not only is it a Newman, it's number 5, man.
That's so great. It is just so great.
Well, I appreciate this, and I wanted to be part of this excitement that you and I have been talking a long time here, and I'm just so thrilled by what's going on right now. And when you talk to Billy next time, make sure you know that he's that 5-string is actually the Tuli the Tuli model.
That's actually Tuli TV yellow.
TV yellow model.
I'll tell him.
And by the way, you should sell him one of your split front dual professional amps.
Oh yeah. By the way, yeah, if you happen to leave any behind, I'll meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was just a lot of fun. Like I say, I wanted wanted to talk to a builder, and when I was thinking of who I could talk to, somebody who's something's really happening now, and this is you.
Yeah.
This is Newman Guitars right now. And people now have a chance to get history and something completely new, something completely, state of the art, something that's like revolutionary. And it's all encompassed through your hard work mainly, that this legacy is going to go. And I'm proud of you, Jeff. I really am. I think you guys have done a fantastic job, and all power to you. I can't wait to watch what future has in store for you guys. And I'm always proud to be your friend.
Hey, that's so awesome. And we'll see you at shows this next year, stuff like that. And
Jeff and the gang there at Newman, and they got something special. If you're in Nashville, go into Rumble Seat, look at the beautiful stuff they have there. Go on Newman.com website. Just look at the beautiful stuff they have. Out of all the guitars you ever made, which is your favorite? What's one that you didn't want to sell?
I have probably 9 of those.
And you haven't sold them yet?
I don't want to sell a prototype, and every prototype led to the next level of things. And so I don't know. I'll say something very interesting is Billy, in our very early days in 2018, he designed a guitar that was real thin and had a 2-layer top, and it was just a really cool guitar, but it was a Newman shape, of course. And we built the body, and then because of tour restrictions, we had to make just flat top guitars and send them out. And they were when he was doing the Big Bad Blues tour in the tail end of 2018. And those guitars went out, and they were just regular flat top Newman guitars. And then that prototype sat for maybe 2 to 3 years. And then I remembered that we cut a body, and I called Jacob and said, "Hey, Jacob, do you still have that body laying around?" And he says, "I think I do." I said, "Let's finish it." And so that one is, a prototype that was a total one-off that never probably will be recreated again and would be very hard to get.
There's a picture of Ted playing a turquoise Newman.
Yes.
Where is that guitar?
I have that guitar. That's the prototype I went down to pick up. That was the last guitar Ted ever made.
So you'll never part with it?
I'll never part with, like I say, a good 8 or 9 of them, I think.
That's a beautiful one.
Ted signed 3 headstocks for me while we were doing prototypes, and all those 3 guitars are priceless to me and represent the lineage of the company, and I couldn't part with those.
So I won't even try to talk you out of that one.
No, not today. But again, it's kind of primitive. It's Ted.
Well, you should always keep me in mind if you ever just say, "You know what, I think time," because I've always been eyeballing that thing. I was actually just going to have you guys make one for me, just like that, as a 6-string with a dark ebony headboard, neck.
Yeah,
I should just have you make one like that for me.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Okay, let me know.
Yeah.
And then you can fool me to say, "Here it is. Here's the one."
So I hope people do visit our website. I hope people do check out our stuff on Instagram and YouTube and everything else like that. We're out there a lot. And so NewmanGuitars.com is our website, and the @symbol Newman Guitars is our Facebook stuff, and @Newman Guitars. Newman Guitars is our Instagram and YouTube stuff too. So
all right,
check us out,
everybody. I hope you guys check this out. You'll be delighted. Never seen this, but I tell you, of all the guitar, I own a lot of guitars, and there's one that always stays on my wall. It's that Newman 5-string. Just a pleasure playing that thing. I always have so much fun, and I write music with it. So I love that. Fan for life.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Jeff.
All right.
This was a great.
But I had the best time too. And this conversation doesn't end here. It just stops being public.
Yep, that's true.
So always call me.
Yeah, we'll be talking again shortly. And I'm excited to hear about the future, and I'll be eyeballing everything that's going on. So
yeah, we'll do.
Best luck to you guys.
Okay, we're always around.
Talk to you again.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Buy That Guitar, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine. Please support VG for all they do for guitar players like us. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment on this podcast. I'd love to hear from you at ram@vintageguitar.com. See you again next week. Bye-bye.
The official Vintage Guitar Magazine 2025 price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go. Use code BUYGUITAR25 to receive 15% off the 2025 price guide when purchased directly from www.vintageguitar.com. Offer expires February 25th, 2025.